that don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host, Melissa.
Hello, JD. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. Today we got a awesome real estate entrepreneur here to give you guys all kinds of key insights on a topic that we haven't covered too much on the podcast. So I'm excited about that. We're bringing you Brian Grimes. He's the founder of 24/7 Cash Flow University. Brian is a pretty high-level investor. He's got about 300 properties in his portfolio. Most of those, if not all of them, through the BRRRR strategy. He's actively doing 10 full gut rehab renovations right now. He runs a mentorship program. There's a lot of good things. He's giving back to the community in a lot of different ways. Brian, thanks so much for finding time to be on our show today.
Definitely. Thanks for the introduction. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, for those in our audience who maybe don't know you, don't know anything about you, can you kind of give us the brief, where you started from, where you're at now, and then we really want to dive into the co-living strategy that you're executing.
No, definitely. I mean, I'm a former basketball guy. Grew up in Philly during like that Allen Iverson era. Played a ton of basketball. Was nationally ranked. Played at LaSalle University, transferred to Columbia University, and, played basketball in the Ivies, graduated, but I was a fierce entrepreneur. So instead of going into like iBanking, I got into financial planning because I wanted to create my own schedule, be my own boss, but I'm pretty much doing, 100% commission sales from day one, no salary. And it built like a thick skin. We call it rhino skin. Like your skin's 12 inches thick. You can't be penetrated by a bullet. You're just cold calling attorneys, getting cursed out and just kind of dealing with it, but learning the ropes and learning kind of that sales game. And I started, like everybody else, stuck to a 9-to-5, kind of glued to the desk. And you just wake up one day and you're like, I think I was meant to do more than this and kind of be stuck in this forever. So as I was working, making money, making those commissions, I was taking everything, saving it, and putting it in a separate account to get invested into real estate. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, while I did have some mentors who were really good, none of them were dedicated. Like they didn't have a dedicated program to show me what they had learned throughout their career and all the trials and tribulations. So I had to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. So I went out, did my first deal. Ultimately, I did a house hack first. Then I got another multifamily property. And then I got bit by that renovation bug and did a deal. And then I did another one on my biggest project. It was a burnout, a tear down. The tear down being like the second floor is on the first floor is in the basement. And then there's just like old tires and a pool of water. And so a tear down, a burnout where the second floor just burnt all the way through the roof, and then a shell. And on that first project, I had a GC run off with 40 grand in the middle of that project. So
that was your second deal ever?
This was my fourth. These were my seventh deals. So it was, okay. I did 4, and then it was 5, 6, and 7 all on one block. And we had the GC run off. And this was when I was getting heavy into like that full gut renovation type of style. And that was like the baptism into, you better step up and really start to control everything and become the GC, or you're not going to be in this game very long.
Yeah, that's one of the huge things that happens. Right now today, when you're doing 100 properties a year, if a GC runs off with $40,000, yeah, it sucks, it stings. Most likely, you're not allowing a situation to happen where that could take place. But when you're first starting out in your first couple of deals, that is such weaker men or weaker investors would no longer be able to continue in the space taking a hit like that. It's really surprising that you were able to overcome that. Like that is devastating.
I call it a series of needle threads because, not long after that, I was meeting with like a local community lender who came in with a bag of cash and saved those deals. So there were a lot of needle threads, but you're absolutely right. And that's what they don't tell you about the School of Hard Knocks. They try to make it like a comparison, like, oh, you can get mentorship, or you could just learn from the School of Hard Knocks. But they don't tell you it's 100 times more expensive to learn from the School of Hard Knocks than, the fractional cost of mentorship. Mm-hmm. So it is ill-advised, and you should only do it if you have to. But there's so much out there now in terms of info that wasn't there like over a decade ago when I started, that it really doesn't make sense.
Did you get your GC license?
I have gotten GC licenses, and there's a philosophy on that. Like, you can be the GC, but there is some benefit to having the third party distance of hiring the GC, having it on their license, and the all the casualty insurance there, and workers' comp stuff on somebody else's license, so it can be safer.
We understand that completely. I think just the key point of just that and what you said is, everyone says, oh, you can learn that for free. You can learn that for free, but you're able to mitigate your losses in this business because we're not playing with a $10 item that you can buy for $8 and sell for 12. Like, exactly. We're playing with some big numbers, life-changing numbers. Most people across America are only going to do one or two of these deals in their entire life. Wow. And we're trying to do it every day, and just a couple of those mistakes can put you in the poorhouse really quick. So really fast. You're not paying to learn how to do it. You're paying for the experience of the person that you're under mentorship with, or you're giving your time to somebody who has already gone through some of those things. I think that's a huge point to bring out, because if you listen to every anti-guru out there, they say, well, you can learn all. You're absolutely right, but there is a level of experience that you can't pay for, no matter how many books you read from the library.
Absolutely, because the games are real. These guys who are trying to burn you, they could burn another contractor. I mean, these are professional con men out here. Yeah. So if you have not gone through that experience or worked with somebody who has, you're going to get taken for a ride. And that lesson, you can learn it for free, but the price ain't free. It's like you just don't want to pay that price. I mean, it's hard to explain it to somebody, but you're right. You could get taken out of the game on your first deal.
We had a lot of that happen here. We had a really big hurricane in 2018, and we're still cleaning up from that. And there was a lot of fly-by-night contractors that came in and took a lot of homeowners' money. It was very sad. And they didn't know any better,
Yeah. No, it's a rough game. That's what I try to explain to people. Like, a lot of us try to get into this from the white collar. So we're working a 9 to 5, and we're like, oh, I'll go do real estate. People don't understand how blue collar real estate gets. It is the Wild West. There is no HR department. There is nobody to complain to. And you can't even sue somebody and get your money because they don't have bank accounts. They don't get paid directly. You can't garnish. You can't get your money. So you're going to now throw good money after bad money, trying to sue somebody and then get a judgment, and that you can't even
collect. What's a judgment?
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, well, it's not worth anything.
Judgment
Right. Yeah. So harsh lessons that you'd rather not learn. You'd rather learn from somebody else's $500,000 of mistakes versus making your own.
Sure. Now that is a little bit dirty, and we like to also say that with all of that being said, and all the scammers that are out there, and all the people that are doing bad, there's also people doing good things, and there's a lot of money to be made here. And And the what we were talking about before we started recording is this co-living space. So can you give us a rundown of kind of what led you into that? You're still using the BRRRR strategy in that, but let's dive that a little bit.
So with rates rising, and I kind of did this before rates even increased, but with rates increasing, you need to look for alternative ways to generate cash flow. Like, you need more cash flow coming out of the typical asset. And I was doing a series of iterations. So I'm always about growth and just iterating constantly. So first you start looking at properties and you just want to do a cosmetic renovation to it as is. So if it's 3 beds, 1 bath, you just want to clean it up, rent it out, or flip it. Now, when you start to get into gut renovation, breaking properties down to the 4 walls, you then start to reconfigure and redesign the product. So I started noticing guys were doing what I call the North Philly kitchen flip. And that's where if you take a row home, the typical setup is you open the front door, there's a living room, dining room, kitchen. So now if the flow is we want to have like a wide open flow where you open the front door and you look straight to the kitchen, what people started doing is taking the kitchen from the back, killing the dining room, having an eat-in kitchen, living room, and then putting another bed behind there. So it's the kitchen flip it from the back to the middle and create another bedroom. So now I turned a 3-bed into a 4-bed. If I go to Section 8 that property, I'm getting paid by the bed, right? By the voucher size. So now it's more cash flow. And then as I started doing that, we started to think about, well, what if we could just make a series of master suites? And it was a call I had with my zoning attorney, my eviction attorney, and my architect. And it was, can we build this? He said, well, yeah, we can build it. It's up to code. I go to my zoning attorney. Are there any regulations against this? No, we can rent to X amount of people that are not related by blood. And then I go to my eviction attorney. Can you evict it? And he says, yeah, we can get them out if they don't pay. No problem. I say, okay, so we can build it. There's no regulations against it and we can evict. Let's go. So we start building co-living. And what it allowed us to do was create this product for the millions of Americans that are sitting, sleeping on their parents' couch or in the basement that can't afford the single family rent for like a single family property. But what they can afford is to kind of room share. And what we would do is create, take a 3-bed, 1 bath, blow it up, build it into 3 beds, 3 baths. You can only get to a bathroom through a bedroom. So now you have like your own studio master suite space and they share the kitchen area and you can flat rate the rents. Maybe you can take the rents up to like $750 a month per co-living suite in a place like Philly, maybe even a little higher in certain zip codes, like $1,000 a month. And what it'll do is take your rent from $1,250 a month on that asset to $2,250 a month on the same asset. So now you're getting an extra $1,000 a month of cash flow coming out of this thing. And that allows you to see past other investors, do more with less. Just it opens the floodgates and you need those competitive advantages. But it's also the thing that you build it and they will come. So I first tested this in the shutdown of COVID, March 2020. Between March 2020 and June 2020, I tenanted 100 co-living units in the middle of it. And you guys know, people didn't even want to leave the house. People were like, this thing's airborne. They were jumping into these units right in the middle of the pandemic, like the beginning of it when we knew nothing. And that's when I knew, wow, I think I'm onto something here. There's a demand here that is insatiable.
Yeah, I do think so. How are you picking the area where you're doing this? Obviously, you got to get the property for the right price. You got to have your teams built up with your contractors. They need to understand what your vision is to execute it. But I feel like, rural America, town of 3,000 people, this probably isn't the best strategy. Maybe downtown Philly where prices for regular properties are through the roof, prices for just a single bed apartment are through the roof. That's where this is kind of a sweet spot.
Yeah. So I've seen this work in a lot of places. Like I know we have people in the mentorship program. They're doing this in rural, Georgia. In parts of Georgia, like on the outskirts of Atlanta. You can do this in almost any major city. And all you have to do to put it in perspective is find the cost of a studio in Center City anywhere and undercut it. Yeah. If you can undercut it by $200 a month, you're going to have the price shopper market, especially during times like now, which are recessionary times. When it's a recession, people look for cost savings and flat rates. Because you're not only creating this, but you're creating a product that is at a flat fee. Yeah. So utilities included, internet included, everything included, $750 a month. Right. So the guy who's driving Uber is essentially workforce housing. The guy's driving Uber or Amazon Prime making $3,000 a month. That's where they can say, okay, 750 done. And then they have the rest of their capital to kind of plan with and save and, plan for their own purchase. So you're creating this workforce housing product, but there are pockets that are good for it. I would say more areas are good for it than not. If you get too rural, you can still do it though, because I can't tell you, like I have a guy who's doing this in rural Georgia. He's got a townhouse, 7 beds, 3 baths. He's renting out everything, renting out the master suite, renting out the rooms. He's pulling in $1,800 a month of cash flow off of the asset, and he's living there too. Right. So he's getting paid to live in his own house. So this strategy, I don't think it's a matter of where you can do it. It's a matter of having the right systems in place, having the virtual assistants to manage it all, and make sure that it's not getting crazy on management. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that work? And so are there issues with? I just can't imagine some of the issues.
People issues. The real estate, that's fine. I understand it makes great sense. Mm-hmm. It's the no kidding. Hey, this girl left her dishes in the sink. And this guy smokes weed in the bedroom, and this guy has.
Yeah. How do you solve through it? Yeah, absolutely. So you have to. All of these issues are solvable. Like all of them are solvable. If anybody has like a triplex out there, you could have a triplex where everybody's in their own unit. Everybody hates each other.
Yeah.
And you're getting a bunch of calls because you have to find like tenants. Mm-hmm. So when you're in a room share, it's so obvious to you that these people have to be alike that you can avoid a lot of these issues. So you're not going to put the 25-year-old guy in with the 55-year-old, mother of one with the 32-year-old, girl who's just like in grad school and kind of doing her own thing, because they don't mesh. They're all living different lifestyles at different time periods in their life, and it just doesn't mesh. So you want to have like very similar type of tenants. You want to do personality tests and proper screening so that you're matching people correctly. You want to set the tone. And you guys know this as on the landlord side. Whenever you're moving anybody in, even if it's a single family, you have to lay the ground rules before you hand over those keys. Because once they get possession, it's like their house, in terms of the law. Realistically, you'd have to get a writ and get a cop to come out to return possession to you. So we lay the ground rules. We have house rules. We'll lay the ground rules and do a lot of that expectation setting early on before you ever move somebody in. Allow them to meet each other. So there's a lot of secret sauce, in doing that, but there's definitely a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. So it's definitely something I wouldn't recommend just going out and trying to figure it out, because, I had 100 properties to figure it out on, and a big support team and 40 virtual assistants and, a lot of control, but I've honed it down, over the course of time, and there's a right way to do it.
Right. And it's a lot easier to make small adjustments to your existing system than to try to start and figure it all out from scratch. I mean, doesn't make sense. Now, so are you still using the BRRRR strategy on all of these co-living spaces that you're getting?
Yeah. So how that'll work is, or did you have a second part to that?
Well, it makes sense because you're getting more income, so that means you can probably afford to refi out at a closer to 100%. But I am wondering, just from the BRRRR strategy, you're getting these at a huge discount. Are you pulling all your money out? You're leaving it some of it in there. What does the actual deal look like?
Yeah. So because you're not really keeping anything on the interior anyway. I mean, you can pretty much buy shells, properties that are at the bottom of the market, 30, 40K, 50K shells, and just gut renovate them straight down to the 4 walls, build them all the way back up. And when you build them back up as a 3-bed, 3-bath, you're now playing what I like to call the appraisal game. Mm-hmm. So when you learn how to think like an appraiser, because I've done, hundreds of BRRRR deals and dealt with probably 2 or 3x that in terms of appraisals. How these appraisers think. So what are they going to do when they come into your property and it's 3 beds, 3 baths? They're going to have to comp that higher than any 3-bed, 1-bath on the market, right? Mm-hmm. In the zip code. So now you're getting top of market valuations on all of your assets, plus more cash flow. So you can definitely do a full BRRRR. Sometimes you can do cash out refis. Now, cash out refis have been hurt by 7% rates, but as rates tick back down, which is the projection, I would say probably by like 2025, there's going to be a big opportunity. And even speaking on that, you know, there's a lot of people that are saying like BRRRR is dead. The BRRRR strategy is not dead. You might just be in the wrong area. But you have to look at the BRRRR strategy as, I look at it like a plant. Would you not water a seed because it hasn't flowered yet? Like, would you not continue to nurture like a plant because it hasn't produced yet? When you look at the BRRRR strategy, even if you buy a deal and it's only making $200 a month cash flow right now, but you could pull all your money out and go do it again and again. Over the course of time, if you hold on to these assets, rents are going to increase. Inflation is going to probably keep going up. Yeah. The cost of living keeps going up. Rents are going to keep increasing. And as they increase, that $200 goes to $300, $400, $500 when you go down the line. A lot of us are too short-sighted with the BRRRR strategy to truly understand the long-term benefits. We haven't held on to properties for 10 years to see our rents go from $800 a month to $1,200 a month for the same product.
Right.
And that's a big difference when you have 10, 20, 30 properties. Sure. I mean, this is how you get into a retirement. So you have to keep that long-term mindset. Would you not water the seed because it hasn't flowered yet? Why are you looking at a BRRRR strategy deal because it's not producing $1,000 a month per door today and saying it's a bad deal? You're thinking too short-term. You have to look out into the future to get to those millions of dollars and just focus on, if you can get your money in and all of it out and go do it again and again, that's a great strategy. And it's going to create tax losses, allow you to keep more money from the W-2. I mean, it does so much for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I am wondering, are you seeing, because you're with the co-living space, you're building better, bigger, nicer areas. Are you seeing an increase in your, comparing it to like a regular flip? If you're just going back in there, putting it back together in the same format versus, what's the increased cost on your renovation cost and all of that to get it there?
Yeah. I would say it can be marginal because I have a lot of in-house teams. If you had exclusively out-of-house teams, like just getting things bid out, where you run up your cost is really on the mechanic lines, like the electric, the plumbing, especially because you have like multiple stacks running through the property, right? Because now you have 3 bathrooms. You're going to have bigger hot water heaters, bigger appliances in terms of your mechanic lines. But outside of that, I mean, it's just extra framing, a little bit of extra time. It depends on the size of the property, but the cash flow, I would say, largely outweighs the additional cost. The additional cost is marginal compared to the cash flow of this asset, especially you're doing this in major cities. Everything becomes more expensive. Your product is like, it's always going to be in demand. It's like having a smaller multifamily property.
That's
and I mean, it is. It's like if you could buy a triplex in a major city, instead of buying it for $500,000, you could buy it for $225,000, and it's still producing that type of cash flow because the taxes are lower. The all of the bills associated with it are lower because it's still going to come up as a single family residence. This is a single family still, so everything is cheaper than as it would be on a multi. So there is a net savings here. I'm not saying everybody should do co-living. Right. I don't want to be the co-living like flag guy running around, but co-living can fit and there's a ton of demand for it. It is, to me, the purest solution to the affordable housing crisis is co-living, because you don't need vouchers. You don't need low income housing tax credits. You don't need any government intervention to do this. You just need foresight, architect, engineer, eviction attorney, zoning attorney. You need to put that play together, do the research, and then go execute. But the demand is there. This property will stay full like indefinitely. And you'll see things like the midterm rental market, like traveling nurses and all of these different people need this type of product. They're looking for this, not the long-term lease and not the short-term Airbnb. They want this type of product.
Yeah. And I mean, the Airbnb, at least in our market, vacation rental place, there isn't a great place for these traveling nurses or any of the midterm stuff, because it doesn't make sense for the landlord to rent their stuff out to the traveling nurse when we can get twice as much for the vacationers. It just, I can see a space for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a premium there.
Yeah.
For sure. So Brian, so you're the 24/7 Cash Flow University. There's a bunch of other ways that people could contact you. I'm sure they got value, and I'm sure there's going to be people that want to hear more about what you have to say, because you're bringing a lot of value to this podcast. Where can we send them to find out more about you and what you guys got going on over there?
Yeah, you can find me all over. I'm on LinkedIn, just Brian Grimes Real Estate. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You can Google Brian Grimes Real Estate. You'll find a lot of my content. I'm on Instagram, Brian Grimes _247 CFU for the 24/7 Cash Flow University. Facebook, you can find me on YouTube, Brian Loves Cash Flow, because I love cash flow. So that's easy to remember. Brian Loves Cash Flow on YouTube. All of this backlinks to a free training I put together for you guys on www.workwithgrimes.com/cashflow, workwithgrimes.com/cashflow. That will send you to a free training. It'll show you how to acquire properties for pennies on the dollar all across the country. You don't want to miss out on that free offer. So definitely tap in there.
Awesome,
Brian. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us and with our audience today, man. That's great.
Don't forget to plug us too.
Oh yeah. Hey, if you guys got any value out of this podcast, please make sure you go in and rate our podcast and give us a good review. That's all we're looking for. All platforms. That's right.
Thank you, Brian. That was awesome. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.